I have advised directly 552 startups.
Yeah.
Okay, that's me. You and Will have been doing this literally for a decade. So
Yeah.
you've got thousands under your belt.
Thousands. Yep.
Most of those startups are going to fail. That's just the reality. How does someone know, just like you talked about, when to give up, persevere, or pivot? How do you decide that?
It's never easy. For me, I think the trick has been letting go fairly early. All right, pushing hard, testing a lot, trying to figure out things that are really important to the business. I think that there are a number of signals that people ignore. And the biggest one for me is probably that product market fit piece, which is like you had this idea and you fell in love with the idea. And so now you are desperate to run around and just prove to the world that that idea was a good idea and that the world needs it. And if they'll just listen, if they'll just give you money, if they'll just buy it, if they'll just whatever. If you find yourself in that position where you're constantly running around and look, just nobody gets it the way I get it. Okay, cool. There's probably a reason. And you might still be right. But if the world doesn't get it, you don't have a business there. Okay. So that's when to give it up. If you've done everything you can think of to seek that product market fit and the market's still going, maybe there's something wrong there. Right. So for me, and there were plenty of other things, right? If I just simply wasn't enjoying it or I was outright not like really like hating the work or not liking the population that I was serving or something like that, I'd let it go. I would let it go really quickly. But I think that it comes back to just the signs are usually there and usually fairly clear unless we're being really stubborn about it and we just don't want to let go for the wrong reasons. And then just be flexible about what the startup actually is. I think that's the other thing. And that's why I love that early exploratory stage. And I love to talk to founders in that stage because you can constantly reimagine what it really is. And oftentimes it says, hey, we've glorified this a little bit as the pivot, but I would say most of my pivoting is done well before it's really anything where I'm even pitching something, right? All of that pivoting happens in those early stages where I'm trying to figure out, does this thing have legs in the market, right? And generally I start that by just talking to the people I want to serve, right? I try to avoid the idea to begin with, right? If you come up with a product idea, if you wake up with a product idea, 99 times out of 99.5 times, it's a shitty idea. It just is because it's based on nothing other than some gut instinct and it's an idea at that point. And so I try to push those ideas to the side until enough of them accumulate in a specific space for a specific population that I feel like going and talking to those people. All right, so if we use Startups.com as an example, it's perfect in my mind because what we've done over the last 12 years, and we've done really, really well, was we knew exactly who we wanted to serve. We knew who we had fallen in love with, and it had nothing to do with the idea. We fell in love with founders. We fell in love with the population we wanted to serve, the people we wanted to help, the people we cared about the most. And then we just got nerdy about their problems. What are they struggling with? Where do they get hung up? How do they need to be helped? How do they want to be helped? How do they perceive their problems? Not how do I perceive their problems? Because you and I run into this all the time. As advisors to startup companies, they come to us and they're like, what's your number one problem? It's A. Turns out it's probably Q, right? They're rarely spot on about what the actual blocker is, right? Like, or if they come to me with the problem, like people just don't get what I'm doing. Okay, that's not their problem. That's your problem, right? But that's not one that you address with them. That's something we figure out separately. Then we go back out and we talk to them. So for me, it's the knowing when to quit has actually been far more about knowing when to start. I've had very few that I've run into where I just got a long way down the path. Like I only had one that I was 2 years into that I realized was a mistake. Only one. And that was as much an emotional issue at the end for me as it was a metrics or a financial issue. And so shuttered that one. The vast majority of them, the stops came early, right? I did the fail fast thing. It wasn't a commonly bandied about term back then, but that's kind of what I was doing. I was just like test, poke, prod, figure it out. But a lot of them died on the vine at the question stage, just talking to the population that I thought I wanted to go help. Turned out the problems that they actually had, the problems that they were willing to pay to solve, weren't the thing that I had a core skill set to help them with. That's a great indication to pack it up and go home.
That makes a lot of sense. I tell our founders, I say, look, if you knew how many startups I've killed, you'd think I'm an abject failure. But that's the actual secret how I got to the idea. So I like the way that you put it. Like, it's not about when to stop. It's about deciding should you even start it to begin with.
Yeah.
And that's the process. So you went through